Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Talkin' Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends near and far to talk about the movies that matter to them the most. Sometimes we talk about feelings, sometimes we really get into it. We'll see what happens on today's episode because I have a friend that I haven't seen or talked to in, let's just say, what is it, like 4 million microseconds, would you say, Krystal Merrells?
Yes, microseconds. That's the measure. Absolutely.
Krystal, so good to hear from you. Like, I honestly, like 4 million microseconds, it probably turns out to be what, like a year and a half, I guess.
You never told me I had to do math on this show, Tongue.
Oh, yes. It's Talking Tongue, the math show, the weekly math show. All right, here we go. 4 times 10.
40.
Yes, but it's also time-based too. So unfortunately, you lose the prize. You don't get the grand prize today, Krystal.
What would have the grand prize have been?
It'd be a very firm handshake from me after COVID is over.
That's fine. I'll just take the hug.
Okay. Yes. Once COVID is over, I'll give you a hug. If it's before COVID is over, I will dress up in an astronaut costume that I bought from eBay and hug you from there. How's that sound?
That's awesome because I just got mine yesterday. So we can.
Would you be able to really make contact with the person? Would you be able to feel a hug if you're both in an astronaut costume?
I mean, Tongue, what is contact? What is your definition?
I thought you were going to say, what is an astronaut? I'd be like, someone who goes to space. Krystal, well, I'm so happy to hear from you and then see you in the video realm. Some people, in fact, I would say you've never stepped foot in the pod cavern before. Is that right?
I did. What? Damn it. What was that podcast with Leslie?
Oh, yes. The improv punch up. Yes. So you have stepped foot. It's been a while, I guess, since they've heard your comedy chops, which this whole episode is going to be bits after bit. No, it doesn't have to be. But Krystal, for the people who don't know who you are, tell us like what you're all about.
So I'm in Ottawa. But I always feel it necessary to tell people afterwards that I'm from Winnipeg. Big part of my identity.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I have at least 3 Winnipeg Jets t-shirts and a jersey with my name on it. I still want Slurpees every time it gets mildly warm outside. And when people complain about the cold, I just laugh at them. So
because they don't even know. Wait, I thought Ottawa cold was like pretty high up there. Winnipeg cold's worse?
Oh, by far. Do you know what minus 50 feels like? Because I do.
Oh, no. That's pre-wind chill, I'd suppose.
Or it's like combination wind chill. But like to put it into perspective, I have a jacket that's graded to a minus 40. And like I could feel when it got lower than minus 40. And I barely bring that jacket out here in Ottawa. So I just buy my regular winter jacket.
It's like minus 30 in Ottawa. You're like, shorts weather.
Yeah, exactly. Stop complaining. But grew up in Winnipeg and I moved here for my internship because what I do is I'm a dietitian. I guess that's like, Krystal by day. I work as a dietitian. And then Krystal by night is an improviser, which that's how you and I met. Mm-hmm. And I teach improv and I even combine my 2 professions. So I guess that's Krystal late afternoon, where I do improv for healthcare. And I just love it. I've got a workshop coming up this Friday. That's just for like Dietitians of Canada, a specific network, using improv. I use it to help teach counseling skills and like connecting with clients, and helping, and just like helping move those sessions along and helping get to know the clients' like true goals and what they need. Mm-hmm. Next week is going to be about now, how do we do this in the virtual world?
Right.
Because there's, you know, as I'm sure like you've noticed too, like working virtually, it's a bit different. Like you need to bring more energy and like, yeah. So yeah.
That's so interesting, Krystal. I'd like to dive a little deeper into just like improv for healthcare. And like, I'm familiar for like improv for business. It was a big thing at, say, the Improv Embassy, the Making Box, pretty much any improv theater. They're like, okay, well, we need another revenue of money that's not just like students who want to learn how to make the ha-has, but how to channel the core concepts of improv, which really just boil down to listening. And there obviously there's the element of thinking on your feet and stuff like that, but it's really just listening and be able to communicate your thoughts a little bit better every time you exercise this improv muscle. So when you say improv for healthcare, what is the, I guess, not benefit, but what is the goal with teaching healthcare workers how to use improv?
Yeah, I would say it's not just listening, communication. A key piece there is like collaboration.
Yes.
And so in healthcare, we are very much taught like, you know, here are the diseases and illnesses you'll come across. Here are your assessment forms. These are the questions you need to ask. And then here's this kind of protocol for what to do next. What in there sounds like improv? Like nothing, right? But life is improv. And so when I started working as a dietitian, I like quickly recognized, I was like, my job isn't to tell people what to eat. It's to really listen to them and figure out like, what are the obstacles? What are the barriers? And like, just what's getting in the way. And, but we're not taught that. We're taught to like look behind a clipboard. Doctors have 15 minutes with people. Like, you know, there's a power dynamic, right? There's a status dynamic there. And we play a lot with status in improv. And so when we start to do that for healthcare, then we start to kind of break down that status and power dynamic. And we make the relationship between clinician and patient way more collaborative. So yeah, like when I started doing improv, I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. And I was doing it in my workplace without even noticing I was doing it. And people would just be like, wow, you know, you worked with that one team member who everyone thought was quote unquote difficult. They're like, you got such great work out of them. And I'm like, what are you talking about, guys? You know what you just had to do? You just had to listen to them and you would have found their brilliance. But yeah, so on top of that, when you get to like, when I was a dietitian interning and I interned in the hospitals, and I was on the floor, and then there you're meeting all of the nurses, doctors, you're meeting maybe speech language pathologists, physiotherapists, you're meeting all of the other healthcare team members that you have never met up until this point in your education. And so that collaboration, that teamwork, it just wasn't there. Right. And there'd be times that like doctors discharged, a patient, and I'd be like, holy crap, like they have a broken jaw and I haven't even got to them yet to be able to tell them you have to have a pureed diet now for 6 weeks. Like, you know, like it's, yeah. So that collaboration can sometimes be challenging just because the system, our education system, is not set up to do that. Right. So like my ideal situation is to like get improv like right into medical school and like healthcare sciences, to have it at the beginning with all the different disciplines. So it's like dietitians, doctors, nurses, pharmacy students, physio students, kinesiologists. We're like all doing improv right from the get-go. So that by the time we get to the floor, it's not just like, oh, what's your job? It's like, no, everyone's already like on the same page, working together, yes-anding each other, and just like, yeah, anyway.
I love the idea. And I was just thinking while you're saying this, I'm like, I just love the idea that you cannot pass medical school until you do a successful Herald where you a panel of improv judges laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Could you imagine like Or like even just getting into med school, it's like, you have the MCAT, but then you also have to like perform a successful Armando.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, your second beat could have done a lot more work here and you didn't sweep at the right time. So like your grades are great, but like, honestly, we're going to have to hold you back.
Yeah. That's the dream, Tuong. That's the dream.
Wow, Krystal, that's so fascinating. I love the idea of this. And I have to say, like, just hearing you talk about this, it's really clear that you're passionate about it, but it's also like really great because like you might be probably in the 70 some episodes of Talking Tongue, one of the most intelligent people that I've spoken to, talking about like really big brained ideas, which is not to diminish any of the guests I've had before that, but I've always pictured you as like someone who's just very so well educated and also very funny. And I'm not here to butter you up, but I will grab my margarine here and butter that toast. And I remember doing improv with you when we were taking classes together. And we have like, I think we were the first graduating class of the Improv Embassy. And we had like a subset of like amazing improvisers that I'm still friends with today. Some of the hardest hitting improvisers were in that class. And I remember like working with you, your brain was just incredibly sharp. And for me, I'm just like, oh my God, how does my stoner brain keep up with the quickness and the sharpness that is Krystal? And it all makes sense now because you're just a smart person. So
wow, that's so interesting for me to hear you say that, especially considering that the whole time you've known me, I've been living with a brain injury.
That's what I want to get back to as well. And I was just going to dive deep into that because I'm like, Krystal with a brain injury, concussion, just like, that you've made even a blog post and all these things around like what it's like to be living with that and how do you overcome that challenge. And you're that smart already. So what is Krystal Unlocked? It's just like, I don't know. President of the world? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how to take that compliment. I think it's really funny for me, like looking back at like my education, because I started in sciences because I literally wanted to be Dana Scully from X-Files. In high school, I had debated going to university for theater or for sciences. And I chose science, and that was just because like I loved X-Files, and I chose sciences just because I thought, oh well, it's more likely that I can get a job with that, I guess. But where was I going with this? Yeah. Anyways, like my first degree was in biochemistry, and then I went on to do nutrition. And I think like as I got older in my like university education, I realized how much at the beginning I studied and put off learning other things of life. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just spent all my time like in the books, like doing my homework and being so studious that I think it did like kind of sacrifice other areas of my life. And then when I got to my second degree, being like older going into that degree and then seeing the younger students, I was like, guys, we don't have to panic if we get a 70%, like, it's no big deal.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I feel like my learning has very much changed, because there was a time when I could draw for you all the chemical structures of every amino acid.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was part of what I had to do. Couldn't do that for you now. That is for sure. Oh, that's a bummer, because that's what I was going to ask you to do on the end of this episode. But since it's an audio podcast, you'd have to describe what you're drawing. I know. It would be like carbon, line, carbon, line, OH. Yeah, anywho, but yeah, I think as I've grown older and then having the brain injury, it's just made me realize how many other areas of life need attention, and how many other parts of health need attention. And so anyways, it's been very humbling and eye-opening and challenging. But, yeah, of course. Yeah. So like the brain injury, I just think that it's just ever since I met you, you've
been dealing with that. And I'm curious, I feel like we'd be remiss not to talk a little bit more about that. And like, I guess like it's been such an inspiring thing to see you continue to push yourself despite having to live with that brain injury. Because I remember meeting you and you're like, like at the very beginning, I think it was pretty fresh as well. So you're like, basically you had like the hour and a half of class that we did, and you're like, I'm done. Like I gotta check out, go home kind of thing. And I feel as though, at least outside looking in, it seems that you've really been able to take control of it, I guess. What do you feel?
Yeah, I don't know if I love the word control, because there's no way to control this. And like I've had 6 concussions and they have all been different. They have all lasted a different amount of time, and and sometimes it doesn't matter. You could do all the things, quote unquote, right, and then still hit a wall really hard. But oh my God, I forgot your question.
Well, I guess I didn't have a question. It was more like, how do you, and yeah, you're right, because I'm not really good with these words either. I've never had, knock on wood, a concussion before. Oh God, I really got to knock on wood a couple of times. Like Captain Meatball's going to wipe me out one day. But like, how do you overcome, and I guess you're not overcoming it, but you're learning to live with it, right? Like, how do you go about that? Because you've written several blog posts and your own mini podcast like series on this as well. So I guess my question is like, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I think living with it is the best way to put it. With a concussion, it can get better. There was a period of time where doctors used to say, if it's been 2 years and you're not better, you're never going to get better. And that is just not true. Like I am almost 6 years out, and I'm at the point now where when I talk to my healthcare team, they're like, so like, do you think you're recovered? And I'm like, there are days where I'm like, wow, maybe I'm done. Maybe I'm good. And then I, try to spend the day on the computer, and then I'm out, or I wake up and I'm just fatigued beyond the point of being able to just move through past it.
Right.
So it's like, will it ever go away? I don't know. But the idea of like with any chronic illness, there's kind of this this metaphor of like, it's like there's this person in your life that you maybe don't really like. Like maybe if you think of like, this might sound
Why did
rude,
you stare at me when you said that? Like I'm confused here, Krystal.
No, but like, if there's like a coworker or someone, or like a boss, or like someone that you have to see or work with like every day, and you don't want to, it's like, well, you can't be mad at them. You can't treat them like shit. You have to still like have like a respectable relationship with them. Right. And that's kind of like how I see my brain injury. It's kind of like this kind of separate me that I'm like, listen, I feel you. Like I have so much compassion for you. I hear you. It's like, and it's like, you're here, and I acknowledge that.
Right. And if you had the chance to report the brain injury to HR, you would, so you get them fired from the company. That's what you're saying.
What would be HR in this case? Like, I don't know, like my heart, my liver.
Yeah, your heart? I don't know. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move on a little bit, but maybe we'll touch on this later. But I've always wanted to pick your brain about that a little about that a little bit more. But yeah, we have other things to discuss, much more important. Not really. We're going to talk about a movie. But let's first talk about, let's shift gears a bit. So things that keep you happy and positive. What else inspires you every single day?
Oh my gosh, my dog. My dog. It is so cool. So this is the first time as an adult that I have a puppy, because if you remember Bob, who was my dog before, love Bob. I miss him. I still miss him.
Of course.
But yeah, I didn't have him as a puppy. And so this little girl, Daphne, we have as a puppy, and just watching her learn things is so fascinating. Like the first day that she shook a paw, I was just like, yes,
Yes.
like Philippe, come fast, baby, learn to shake a paw.
Right.
Get the video camera, which is now our phones. But but yeah, watching like the gears turn in her head as she's figuring things out, seeing her meet other people and other dogs, and like learning to play, and like learning what a ball is, and learning what a frisbee is, and all that. That is so exciting to me.
I love that dog journey you're going through, because like I also am going through the same thing, where I've grown up with family dogs, and like my sweet little Chihuahua girl Henny, she passed away like 2 years ago, and that broke my heart. But I was like, I need another companion, but I've never had my own, right? Like I would say that my Henny, the little cute Chihuahua that we had in the family, it was just a giant pudgy rat looking thing, but just so freaking cute, just slept and ate all day. But I never like had to train from scratch kind of thing. And the differences of that, like, you know, having to completely take ownership of a dog at a very young age is so different than anything I've ever had to do before. Do you feel the same?
Yeah. And like, and just like the decisions you have to make too, you know, which I had some with Bob, but just like okay, well, at what age are we going to get her surgery done? And and it's like, okay, like we just went to the vet this morning. It's like, which vaccines are we going to give her?
Oh my God.
And so on and so forth. And then like, you know, like, okay, can we let her off leash now?
We just talked about that before we hit record. Yes, it's such a weird thing, because and other people were like, you should just do it. You should just do it. But my big advice for people is like, don't tell other people how to train their dog. Like, that's like, it's just an annoying thing. There are definitely more effective ways, but I think you should keep it to yourself unless someone asks you for help. Because today we went on a walk on a trail, and Krystal, I told you this before the show, but like Captain Meatball, he saw someone else playing with a ball. So he ran up, took the ball, and then he started running away from us. And today was the first day he was like completely off leash. So like I couldn't reel him back in. Another man walks by, just an older gentleman, and he's like watching us kind of struggle. He's just like, watch this. And he blows his whistle, and he's just like, this will get him to come back. He blows his whistle, and the whistle does nothing because Captain Meatball is not trained to listen to a whistle. And he's just like, oh, you should teach your dog how to respond to a whistle. And I'm like, get out of here, man. Like, you're no help.
Oh my gosh. That would be like, if someone had like a screaming child in a store and someone like pulled out a kazoo and was like, oh, your child didn't stop screaming. Train them to listen to a kazoo. That makes no sense.
I was so irritated. I'm like, don't ever tell me how to train my dog. I was just like, I don't like that unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
I feel like as an owner, you probably know this too. Like, just like you spend the most time with the dog, so you will know when they're ready to make certain decisions. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
It's like at the end of the day, it's like not like I know what it's like to be a parent, but seeing other people be parents to humans, being a parent to a dog is just like, I'm doing the best I can. Okay. Like some days she's gonna take a poop in the middle of the sidewalk. I don't know. Like, what do you want from me?
We're doing our best we can, but no matter what, we are doing our best. And I feel like you're probably in the same boat where it's like, yes, you will. Like, just for me, it's like constant training almost. It's just like when I'm not doing work, when I'm not podcasting, whatever, it's like, okay, is Captain Meatball satisfied? Is this a good time to try to refine skills we already know? Is this a good time to start I don't know, letting him explore other places of the universe and really give him that life experience. Because like for me, I look back on my family dog, another one of my family dogs who's still kicking around, Maya, and she is old now, so she's not going to disobey anything, but she's also was like a little shit the entire time of her life. She was just never trained. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want a dog who will listen. So I'm going to put in the work now. And hopefully by year 2 or year 3, it's smooth sailing from there, baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah. With Bob, it was like, after he was 4 or 5 years old is when he started settling in. Yeah. I mean, strong-willed. But what's your favorite thing that you've taught Captain Meatball? Or like the thing you're most satisfied with? You
know what? It's I can go on and on about this, but like for me, like I've just so locked into I've become such consumed with how to be the best dog trainer that I can be. I was like reading books, I was listening to podcasts, I was like consuming content, and I was just like, all right, I need to be the best dad I can be. And to see some of that go through was just like basic tricks and stuff like that. And I think, yes, you can teach a dog how to do like a useless trick, but when it comes down to it, it's just building communication with your dog, which is just a good thing. That's like how you develop your bond, and your dog is very satisfied for pleasing you as a human. So if you can get them to do a figure 8, then awesome. So like for me, like that's like he can do a figure 8 today, or like this week I taught him how to crawl towards me. Which is amazing. Like he can jump over stuff. He can weave through my legs if I ask him to. He can jump up like pretty much to my head if I ask him to. But yeah, I'm really proud of like him crawling towards me, which is like the coolest thing. And like figure 8, like that's like, I'll just point behind my butt and like down my legs, and he'll know to like just go through my legs in a figure 8 pattern now.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it's such a nice thing, because he's such a naughty boy outside. So to see him like really get those gears turning is like such a nice positive thing. We're about to teach him how to speak, which I'm scared of, because I'm like, oh God, he's going to bark all the time. But we've noticed as he's growing older, he's just naturally barking at stuff. And they say you can't teach a dog how to be quiet unless you teach him how to bark. And I'm like,
I was just gonna say that's totally what I hear too. Is it's like if you teach them to bark on command, then they will only do it when you tell them to. So yeah, that's hopefully the way to go.
That's next week's lesson. But anyways, we got an agility course for him too. So he's been learning how to do that. And it's been so fun watching him go through that. And then he'll spot a dog from afar and then start barking at them and get distracted. So
wait a minute. How are you doing an agility course right now?
We bought an agility set.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like, although our yard is not really conducive for it, so it's kind of like we set up poles and stuff like that that the agility course went through, or what it came with, and like he'll go through it, but then he gets distracted and he's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really funny to see that. How about you? What's the best trick you've taught?
I find that Daphne has been like slow to like pick up different tricks. So like the most satisfying one was a high five.
Oh yes.
And she, there are times where she high fives me where it actually makes like a dish noise, where
cool.
just like sound effect. But the reason why that was so satisfying was because like on walks, when their leash gets tangled underneath their legs, now I'm just like, Daphne, high five, and then she untangles herself, and I'm like,
oh, cool. That's a useful one.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow, I feel like I can talk about dogs all day, but we have to get to the very important news of the week, which is not really much. Like every episode of Talking Tongue, we go through a couple pop culture headlines that I find from IGN.com. I've never read these headlines before, neither has Krystal, and we're just going to see where the conversation takes us. So, Krystal, guess what?
What?
Godzilla versus Kong smashes pandemic record for opening weekend box office debuts. How about that?
Wait a minute. That's a movie that's out right now?
Yeah. Godzilla versus Kong. I guess the fourth movie in this entry of Godzilla monster universe. I've honestly not seen any of them. I kind of
Okay.
want to, but I think it's really impressive because they're obviously we live in the pandemic and it's really, really hard to go out to see the movies, right? And the
Yeah.
way Godzilla came out versus Kong, I think it released in theaters, but also you can rent it from home. Now, I'll put it into perspective right now. Like throughout the course of the pandemic, like like Pixar movies have, oh sorry, that's a bad example because those have just been released for free on Disney Plus, but like Mulan has been released, Raya and the Last Dragon, huge Disney movie,
Right.
and they've come out with like small amounts, like a couple million, which is very bad for movies. It's a
Okay.
lot to us, but really not great for movies.
Yeah.
So the previous records, in third place is Tom and Jerry,
What?
$14 million.
What?
Wonder Woman, $16.7 million, and Godzilla versus Kong, $48.5 million.
Wow. What do you think is the draw to Godzilla versus
I
Kong?
don't know. Maybe it's just like just two monsters fighting. I mean, that certainly draws me in. But maybe some people had operated on the false pretense that we'd see finally Kong's dong and on the big screen. Um, that's what I've heard,
Wow.
anyways. Is that
That's what you've
something?
heard?
That's what I've heard. Is that something that interests you to see that on a PG movie? I assume.
No. It's like when you said like Godzilla versus Kong, I was like, hasn't that been done? Like that was my first
Probably.
instinct. I was like, I feel like that's been done. What could be added to it now? I guess like better effects and
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just because it's the fourth, like they've been building towards it. Again, I
I
haven't seen
see.
this yet, and I wasn't joking about this Kong Dong thing. I've heard some people like, yeah, that would be awesome, but it's like, why would you expect that in this movie?
That is how low the bar is for movies in the pandemic, I guess.
Also, I mean, like, I shouldn't speak up. It's a very loud minority of people, but some people are like, well, I don't get it. Like, you can see his butt, and he's an ape. So why can't we see his giant dong? It's like, well, I think you're looking at the wrong things right now. It's two
Yeah.
monsters fighting. That's the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Meanwhile, these people are hung up about anatomy. They're like, but I
Yeah.
don't understand. And
Or
his
they just like,
trapezius muscle is in the wrong spot.
I think it's just the rhyming scheme is that they're really going for here. You
Oh,
know?
everyone loves a good rhyme. And if
Yeah,
not a good rhyme, a good alliteration.
that's right. You can't say Godzilla dong. I just don't think there's nothing
Doesn't,
there.
no, no,
You know?
no. What could you
Anyways,
say? Yeah.
yeah,
What rhymes
well,
with Godzilla?
we'll find out at the end of the show. Like we're both like thinking in our improviser brain.
I'm like,
Nothing.
mozzarella? No, damn it.
Let's move on here. Let's see here. Star Trek and Reading Rainbows host LeVar Burton wants to host Jeopardy. Are you familiar with LeVar?
Yeah. So, like, the very first image I had pop into my head from memory was in grade 3. Like, we all used to all go out to the kind of center of that part of the school, and they'd put up a big projector, and we would watch Reading Rainbow.
Oh, I love Reading Rainbow.
Yeah.
Would you be down with LeVar doing Jeopardy? It's pretty big shoes to fill, but
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? I mean,
I agree.
he's giving answers to questions.
But I
feel
think there's
like
a certain personality that you have to like. Trebek was so good at like, yes, of course, doing that, but also like playing with the guests as well. And sometimes he would like low key make fun of a lot of them
Yeah.
if they're being kind of ridiculous, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like at the same time, I feel like, Jeopardy could use like something new, right?
Yeah.
Like it's been around for how long? Like my memory image associated with Jeopardy was being forced to watch it when my grandma would babysit us. And she wasn't very like kind to me. Like I refer to her in my memory as evil grandmother.
Oh my God.
Like if it's like grandma, but like Care Bears is on, she'd be like, we're watching Jeopardy. So, yeah.
Jeopardy, your favorite game show, would you say, growing up?
No.
No.
But what would be my favorite game show growing up? I mean,
We
what
just
else was
recorded a top
there?
5 of this, which I won't reveal the winner.
Ba ba ba.
Ba, ba, ba. It's hard. I don't know. It's hard. I'll reveal one of the shows. Maybe this might go over you, Krystal, but there is a show called Uh-Oh that came out for YTV. It was a
Oh,
kids
and
show.
yeah, and was it like at the end they got slimed or something?
Yeah, well, yes. So you have quick context for people who don't know what it's a YTV show in Canada, and you just get a bunch of kids competing in really dumb contests that like they would go through obstacle courses and they would get slimed and stuff like that. And there was the Ghost Wink Yahoo, which is a ridiculous name. But if you spin the wheel or whatever the equivalent to is in that show, I forget, and you land on the part of it, then you would have to go into like this area underneath like a bucket where you have this man who's basically dressed in like a BDSM costume. and his name is the Punisher, and he would say terrible puns before he would throw a bunch of goop on you. And that's the show.
Yeah. Like as you're describing it, I'm like, wow, like because I'd only remembered it from my kid perspective. But you know, when you go back and you watch stuff as an adult, you're like, this was really kind of messed up.
You should Google a picture of the Punisher. It's like, oh yeah, that's like a sex dungeon outfit this guy's wearing. Gosh. Yeah. But it was always funny because you'd always say like lines like, now there's goo on you. And it's like, that's the best you can come up with before he pours the slime. Yeah. You also don't lose points as well when you get slime. That's just the punishment. Yeah, that's it.
It's like I'll take the slime. I think that was probably during the era where like GAC was very popular. Do you remember GAC?
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one. What's that?
It's not a show. It's a product, and I don't even know what its appeal was, but it was essentially like Play-Doh, but it was slimier. And that's all it was. Oh. And anyways, I had this fascination with GAC when I was a kid and my friends, and we would like collect the different colors. But like, yeah, I don't know. Simple pleasures.
That's right. I mean, here's the real question. Would you accept a gooping, that's what I'm going to call it, or sliming from the Punisher at your age right now?
What's the context, Tuong?
You're outdoors, you're walking alone, it's nighttime. No, I'm kidding. It's just you get to be a special guest on a comeback special of Uh-Oh for adults. That's it. But the whole thing is you don't get to play the whole game of Uh-Oh. It's just whoever wants to get slimed by the Punisher, you're allowed to.
Like I'm not against the slime, like I'm pro slime, but like, am I going to be able to get it out of my hair? That is the only concern I have.
No, because it looks like they pour paint on you, which is probably why they stopped the show, because of the paint fumes.
Okay. Another memory tied to this. So for one of my friends back in Winnipeg, for his it was a 20-something birthday. So it's not like a young kid's birthday. It was a 20-something birthday. We had a Jell-O pool party. So everyone had to bring a bucket of red Jell-O, and then they had like an inflatable kid pool, and we like dumped all the Jell-O, and then it was a dude. So it's like some of the people had like wrestling matches in the Jell-O. Other people just like slid through it. I have like a bone carving necklace that I was wearing at that time. It still got red on it from that red Jell-O. Like I was so sticky for a very long time after that party. Yeah.
So you don't want to be that level of colorful sticky from the Punisher is what you're saying.
I feel like I've done it, and that memory stays with that person's birthday party, and so nothing can top it.
That's fair. Last question on the Punisher. Of course, this is the Punisher podcast now. Is if you had a chance, let's say you're back to being single, whatever, Punisher just wants to go on a date. Would you go on a date with the Punisher? He does not take the costume off at any point of the date.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, that's dating to begin with. Like, everyone's wearing some sort of mask anyways.
Wow.
Just a throwback to the power of improv. When I did start dating, and now like I've been with Philippe almost 3 years. Yeah, it'll be
Wow.
3 years next month. But when I did start dating, I remember just thinking every date is just playing improv. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I'm just gonna, if it doesn't seem like it's working out, I'm just gonna like find the game of the scene and I'm just gonna play that.
That's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I navigate regular conversations. That we do our best to be conversational and be outgoing and stuff, but some people don't give. Like they don't
Yeah.
give you what you need, so you really got to dive deep. And luckily, improv has taught me how to get a little bit into the conversation, try to unlock anything as part of the
Yeah.
conversation. Sometimes it doesn't work though. Some people are just not interesting people, or they don't want to open up, and it's like, great, now we're gonna sit here in silence for the next 20 minutes.
Which improv also helps you with.
Yes,
Sitting in
that's right.
silence.
Yeah, because or just living in awkward situations or like bombing.
Yeah, failing really hard.
Yeah.
Thank you, improv.
Yeah, I miss bombing on stage. I can't wait for when we go back into the real world. First show comes up.
Oh,
People are ready to see a funny scene, and I'm just tanking it on the
yeah.
stage.
You know what? That's what the first show back will be called. Tank.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be like all these improvisers who are like, like super hungry for stage time.
Yeah.
It's gonna
And
be
then the
like,
audience is like, I don't want to be here anymore. When does the show end?
what is it even about? Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just two more stories before I get into the movie of the week. Is one of them we'll start on this one because it's a bit of a downer. But I'd be curious. DMX died yesterday, actually, at age 50, the rapper. Any attachment to I was gonna say any attachment to rap? Do you like rapping, Krystal? But DMX was actually part of like a lot of like he was a huge rapper, and so I'm not gonna pretend I'm a huge hip hop guy in general, but just like he was actually in movies and things like that with like even Jet Li, for example. I forget what the movie was called. But did this impact you when you heard the news, or is this the first time?
This is the first time I'm hearing it. And oh gosh, I'm sorry, Tug, but honestly, I was like, DMX, is that like a bike thing? I was like, shit. But then you're like, oh, rapper, right. Can you like tell me some songs or things to help spark my memory?
Right. Well, I would just say DMX was like a rapper, very famous in the 90s.
Okay.
And yeah, he did a couple films. I forget what the film was called with Jet Li. That's all I remember from DMX. And I think, isn't X gonna give it to you? Isn't that DMX as
Oh,
well?
maybe.
Is that him? Oh
Hey,
man.
wait.
Yes, it is. It's X gonna give it to you. That's one.
Nice.
That's really the only one that I know. I'm just reading some of the songs that he's had here. Is Rough Riders Anthem. Don't know what that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Where the Hood At?
Not by name.
Where the Hood At? No, I'm just gonna party up. I was just trying to do it from X gonna give it to you. Slippin'.
Mm-hmm.
Who we be? How's it going down? Okay, all right.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I have a fondness in my heart for anything related to 90s music.
Mm-hmm.
So and one of the things that I think, news like this makes us like reminds us of is I saw like a meme the other day that was like the 90s to teenagers right now are like what the 60s were to us when we were teenagers. Because like I was a teenager in the 90s. So it's like thinking like, oh my God, the 90s was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. And like recognizing, because, to us, it doesn't like seem like it was that long ago. And recognizing that, oh yeah, it did very much have its own kind of identity, its own music, its own fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching for shits and giggles. We pulled up like some Spice Girls videos. And I was just like, what is this? Like,
Such a different era, right?
it is such a different era. And I never really recognized it until recently. But yeah, or even like there's like one new artist that I came across because, as you probably noticed, I don't know a lot of pop culture or anything that's happening.
You're like Godzilla. I know I've heard the name.
I know that. But yeah, like what's her name? Dua Lipa?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I actually I've heard some of her songs and I really like them. And then I was listening to someone review her album and they were like, yeah, like she's sampling all these like vintage sounds like from the 90s. And I was like, this is why I like this music. It's because it just like reminds me of that time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the things that are being talked about, which I didn't realize because I don't know too much about DMX. I'm not going to pretend I was a huge fan growing up. I know X gonna give it to you. Who doesn't? But it sounds like, first of all, he had 15 children, which is, it's like, whoa, with like several different women. And apparently he also came up within like a really rough situation growing up. And he's been battling a lot of demons and drugs and all these things. And I think a thing that was celebrated about him, it sounds like he kind of dug himself out of like a really dark place where not only was he, suffering from drug abuse and it sounds like just personal demons in general and lashing out at people and whatnot. But it sounds like one of the things that he addressed, which you don't see, like not only just rappers, but celebrities and people in general is owning up to that and trying to make change from the person you were to the person that you end up being at the later stages of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like how relieving or great would it be to just see people say, like, I'm sorry. Exactly. I really messed up, instead of like trying to play it off like, oh my gosh, I was such an idiot, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's like, like don't try to turn this back on trying to whatever. Anyway, but just, it was like, how wonderful would that be to just see people go like, oh, I'm sorry. That was seriously horrible. And now I do better, because we've all done shitty things, and it would just take that like pressure off of us from feeling like we have to be perfect all the time. And like, we could all just like apologize and move on.
Exactly. Not to get into cancel culture, because I don't want to spend too much time on that, but like mostly the fact that like everyone makes mistakes, especially celebrities and stuff, and especially in the public eye of people. And you've just mentioned it. We both have made mistakes, probably will continue to do so by accident, doing the best we can. Like we talked about dogs and stuff like that. But I hope the thing that doesn't define us is like those just direct mistakes, but how we learn from them and how we become better people. That's the story I want to take away from people,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Last story, it could be yes or no, because we really should just get into the movie of the week, is Disney Parks promises a real retractable lightsaber. Do you want one? Yes or no?
Yes. 100% I want one. Are you kidding me? Who doesn't want that?
How much would you pay?
How much would I pay? I'd pay a sliming by the Punisher, I guess.
Sounds awful.
Like, I want that. And like, if you could throw in a hoverboard for me, like that would be great. But yeah, that's amazing.
Right?
Tuong, I imagine, come on, you?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly.
I want it to be real. I want to, and if I died I don't want to, but if I turned the lightsaber on the wrong way and died by my own lightsaber, pretty cool way to go. People would be like, well, he's an idiot, because clearly the lightsaber should have been turned around. But at least he went out pretty cool.
Hashtag Darwin Awards.
Yeah. All right. Enough of this. We need to talk about the movie of the week. Krystal, you brought up this movie. Do you want to introduce it to everyone?
Yeah. I mean, I have the DVD with me. So yeah, because Tuong, you were like, as long as it's streamable, and we don't have any streaming services. We have DVDs. So this one was lent to me by a friend. It's called Spy.
We're giving you a new identity. You will no longer be Susan Cooper.
You're Penny Morgan, divorced housewife from Iowa. It's a confidence builder.
You really think you're ready for the field?
Damn it! Who puts a roof on a scooter? What are you, the Pope?
And it's by it's directed by Paul Feig, which who doesn't love Paul Feig? I think that's how you say his last name, but I'm not 100% sure. And then it stars Melissa McCarthy and Jason Statham is in there, Rose Byrne and Jude Law. And shall I tell you like how I came to watching this movie?
Yes, but first I have to say, just to spend a little longer on this, you are maybe the only person I know around my age group that does not have a single streaming service. And I think that's an incredible, because the way you responded was like, well, no, I don't have a streaming service. And I'm like looking at my bill and I'm like, well, I have like 5 of them.
I don't even know that there's 5. I couldn't name you 5. Yeah. I mean, this goes back to the brain injury, right? Like I can't watch TV very much and my screen time needs to be saved for work. So the fact that I can watch 2 movies a week is a huge fucking deal. Even a year ago, this was hard. And 2 years ago, for sure, I couldn't. And like on a TV, because like me and Philippe moved in together last year and he has an actual television. Right. I didn't have one. So I just watched stuff on my, laptop sometimes.
On your iPod Nano or something like that. Yeah, this is it true. Is the first time you saw a real TV was when Philippe moved in.
Or like when I visited back home with my parents at the holidays and they were like, oh, we're gonna watch like our holiday family film favorites. And I was like, okay, and I was sitting there and I had my sunglasses on and and they have 2 TVs and like one is I don't know what the type's LED or something. What is another type?
It's amazing, Krystal. I just think, I mean, of course, it totally makes sense because of the brain injury and stuff. It totally makes sense. I just love it because it's like we live in a world where I find like most people find comfort from TV and movies and stuff. And it's like, it's not something you can interact with regularly. But the fact that you have to second guess yourself to say the word LED is like indicative enough of how much you know about TVs.
I know. I mean, it's like when the concussion that's lasted almost 6 years now, like when that first happened, I missed TV so much. Like, cause you can't do anything. Like you can't go to work, you can't exercise, you can't read, you can't you can't do like a million things. Even listening to music was hard. And so you're just like sitting there, like hating life. And I was like, man, what I would give to just be able to watch like Buffy the Vampire Slayer right now. Like what would I give to just be able to watch TV? But like as the years progressed, I missed it less and less. Yeah. And and then now it's like, why would I pay for streaming service? I barely watch TV.
You're just catching up on the old technology. It makes sense. You're on Blu-rays right now, which is good.
Yeah, that's what this one says. It says Blu-ray.
Okay, Krystal, how did you come about Spy?
Okay, so going back to, so we only watch DVDs, which Philippe is also my partner. He's just a fan of actually having movies, and he likes DVDs. So we've been going through them, and between his and my movies, I was starting to get really frustrated because we had so few that had women in them. We had so few that passed the Bechdel test. Right. And I was actually, I feel like there's a time in my recovery where I was just so grateful to watch TV that I would watch anything. And now I'm like, I only have, such limited time. It better be good. And so watching some of these movies where it's just a bunch of dudes, I was getting frustrated. So I asked a friend of mine if she had any movies with like female leads, and her boyfriend has a ton. So she lent me a huge stack, and in there Spy was in there. So amazing.
And I believe Paul Feig, I think I'm saying it right, he also worked on, well, Freaks and Geeks is one of the bigger ones. Looks
Yes,
like he
and
worked on The Office as well, and Bridesmaids.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he did Bridesmaids. He's done a lot of movies with Melissa McCarthy, and I actually do have all on DVD, Freaks and Geeks, which was such a great show. Like I watched it when it came out, and it's so sad it got canceled. Ugh.
Yeah, it's just one of those. Well, we'll see. It might be brought back as like I don't know. They're bringing everything back. I'm not sure if you knew this, Krystal.
That's what I like hear on the grapevine.
Yeah, that's how you listen to the radio, to AM radio to get your news.
Man, one beautiful thing that came out of my concussion, like not being able to do much, is it's like, yes, the radio was accessible. So like I discovered CBC radio. And I'm like, why have I never loved this before? And now I'm a huge fan.
Amazing. Okay, Spy. So Spy, first of all, we'll just get a gut check. Did you like this movie?
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Is it first time watching it? Or have you seen it before?
I saw it. Well, when did I saw it? I saw it like a few months ago, and then you contacted me, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm watching this again.
Amazing. Okay, this is my first time watching this film. I recognize the cover, and I just one of those movies that just kind of passed by, being like, that looks fun. And I just never got around to it. So like one of the best things about Talking Tongue is it's an excuse to watch people's movies they want to watch. So I'm really happy you brought this one up because it's a belly laugh movie. Like there's some really funny shit that is said in this movie.
Yeah, this movie has just like a lot of things that I love. One thing I've noticed that, me and Philippe love about movies is ones that travel. And so like a good chunk of Philippe's movies are like in French because that's his first language. So he has a bunch of like European movies. And so this movie like travels, right? It's in Paris and then it's in Rome and then
it's everywhere.
in
Yeah.
Budapest. Yeah. So it's like, I love movies that travel and that show different places. So that was great. And then just like the lines in this movie.
Oh my God. Insane. It's just nonstop.
Yeah.
Just Tommy gun of jokes over and over.
Yeah. And we watched like the extra features or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's fun to see how Paul Feig works. And I don't know if you know this, but like they write the script, but then on set, he's like rewriting it. And so the actor will say their lines and then he'll improvise and he'll throw out new lines to them or he'll ask them to improvise. So like there's so many scenes, like especially like Jason Statham's lines.
Oh my God.
Which were brilliant. Like every line was so good. Like there's outtakes of Paul Feig just saying, okay, now say, you jumped out of a helicopter on fire, da 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 da. And then Statham just like bursting out laughing and being like, I don't know if I can remember all that, but yeah. So it's like Paul Feig is like feeding them lines.
That's so cool.
On the set.
Yeah, it makes sense. It really feels like I like Statham, but I always felt like he in movies, he's always kind of the same. And in this movie he kind of is, he's kind of like a parody of a lot of the stuff that he usually does. Yeah. But he has such good comedy chops in this movie, especially. And the lines that he has given and said is so absurd, like saying how many ways he's survived a thing is such a good joke.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I dislocated both shoulders and then relocated them at the same time, or I ripped this arm off and then reattached it with the other one.
Yeah, and then like I got injected with 179 different poisons and lived through it, and it's like, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah. It's just watching. It's like it's a perfect improv scene of watching someone heighten, right? Yeah, like every line. Anyway,
actually, everybody in this movie has great comedic timing, and you could tell like a lot of this guest is pretty tenured when it comes to that kind of stuff. Even Jude Law, which I don't really view as like a funny guy, like he's good at like quippy humor, but in this one he's given more like funny stuff, I guess. But Melissa McCarthy is the queen of this. I saw a clip the other day of her just being allowed. I don't know what movie it was for, but it was just like, look how good Melissa McCarthy is at improv. And you see Leslie Mann and Paul Rudd in the scene as well. And Melissa McCarthy is just given like free reign of 4 minutes, just spew nonsense. And it is crazy, the commitment she gives to the character and saying all these ridiculous lines with a straight face.
Oh, I know. I wish I had her ability. Like there's also we have Bridesmaids as well, and there's like an outtake of her. Like there's one scene in Bridesmaids where she's at work for, what is it, intelligence or something, and she's talking to the main character about where they should do the Bachelorette, and it's just, I don't even know how long it is. It's probably like 4 minutes of her just like line after line after line, and it's every line is so good. Like, yeah, it's brilliant how quick and just how funny she is.
Yeah, this just like real talent over there. The whole movie was just so much fun. Is there any we won't have to go through the whole plot of the movie, but like, is there like favorite moments you had in it? Anything stood out to you?
Let me see. I have to like look at the DVD to remind me of different things. One thing I really loved was this might sound kind of weird, but like how many costume changes Melissa McCarthy had. So many from the CIA characters she was given, which were all, you know, kind of like cat lady and and ridiculous. But then also like when she's in Rome and she gets that beautiful dress and and then when they're in Budapest, she gets like a whole other look. Like her fashion, I like actually love in the movie. But yeah, I think like one of the things I did like about this movie too, that also kept you going, was watching Melissa McCarthy's character evolve, because she starts off as this like super meek, like I'm in love with the CIA man.
Exactly. I'm behind the scenes, but I don't want to ever go in the field.
I would shoot myself, you know. She's so like, you know, kind of plays herself down, and just like you see her build confidence and then get more to kind of the Melissa McCarthy character that we know from potentially
a little bit more aggro, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think one scene that stood out is was it in Rome or Budapest? No, it's Rome. Anyway, whatever, where she goes and she steals someone's scooter, and she gets in the scooter and it's covered. Yeah. And then she rides in it and it just topples over.
Yes, good physical comedy there.
Yeah, the physical comedy, and then her line of like, who puts a roof on a scooter? What are you, the Pope? It's just, anyway, I don't know. Yeah. I do love physical comedy. So to see like that combined was really great.
Yeah, there was a lot of that for sure. Even like Melissa McCarthy having like pink eye, and it was so gross looking, and then it's being addressed and like, oh, don't touch me, you have pink eye, that kind of stuff, which I think is just I don't know. It's just so silly, the entire runtime of this movie, and it feels quick too. I think it's a 2-hour movie. Yeah. And there's, you know, and again, going to like the reason why I came to this movie was, you know, it was a movie that has women in it that passes the Bechdel test. But there's a lot of action in it. And another thing I love about it is it's like you see Jason Statham's character fail at action. And you see like the women kind of saving the men. And one scene that really did stand out to me was that scene in the kitchen where Melissa McCarthy and then that other woman are fighting. Green jumpsuit.
Yeah, the green jumpsuit. Man, that fight scene was so cool.
Yeah, I wrote that down too, because I was like, oh my God, like there's some shit going down. And I kept saying like, oh my God, like when people use frying pans in a fight scene, like cast iron pans and stuff like that, I'm like, that would kill someone. How are they living through this?
Yeah. And like really it was such a small space too, but they used a lot of it as props, and then there was like throwing knives, and then they were throwing vegetables, and like even how it was filmed, like the image was very crisp.
Yeah. And like I like in this movie, they don't They don't do it too often, but they don't really mince the violence in this movie because the violence is a little over the top. Like in that scene, like a knife goes right through the hand and you see it and you're like, oh. And then like another time, which I really like this scene, which is like some guy drinks poison who tries to poison Rose Byrne's character. And like it just goes right through his throat and you see it and you're like, that's nasty. But as he's dying, he's like flipping everyone off. So it's just like, it's really over the top and funny, even though he's dying horribly, you know?
Yeah. No, exactly. I think like again, and a lot of the action also being like women in the movie, there was no holding back. It wasn't like you saw that. Well, not like a knife really went through the actress's hand.
Sure. but it looked like it.
And just how like hardcore and badass like those fight scenes were. Even with like Melissa McCarthy, some of the stuff her character / stunt double did, was really fun to watch.
Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. I just keep going to like Jason Statham's character, and it's just like such a not what I expect. I thought he would play a bigger role in the movie. He's kind of just there as the guy who wants to be the person who saves the day and constantly fucks it up along the way, right to the very end. And then they sleep with each other for whatever reason.
Yeah. You expect it to be the Italian guy, but.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we got to talk about Aldo, which is that character, which is like the most handsy character I've seen in a movie in a while. What did you think about Aldo?
Yeah, the most inappropriate. He was like everything women hate. But yeah, doing it with a smile. And like he was very kind of cartoony too in the way that like he talked and moved.
Right.
Yeah.
Peter, I'm going to mess up his last name. I'm seeing it right in front of me. Serafinowicz. I can't even say. He's been in a lot of stuff. He's been like Guardians of the Galaxy, Shaun of the Dead, John Wick. He was the Tick when they revitalized that series for a little bit. Great actor. And like, yeah, he plays that slimy dude you don't want to be around you well, because he's just like constantly trying to touch Melissa McCarthy's boobs or like really get in there, and she's like, oh my god, like fuck this guy. Yeah,
exactly. Or like some of the looks she gives him as well, and some of the shit that she calls out on him too. But yeah, like it was just like there were so many different characters in this movie, and they were all like kind of caricatures of what you might see in like
a regular spy movie, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So I can just imagine that like watching this movie too, I was like, oh yeah, this is what every comedy nerd would love to do, right?
Like, just like improv scene, but it's a spy movie kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like be James Bond, but you get to do it with like your like the fun comedy that is improv,
Yeah. What did you think about, I guess, Rose Byrne's character in the movie?
Yeah, I feel like she, she was like the evil villain, quote unquote, but she was the daughter of the evil villain. So it's kind of like she was just sort of born into it. And one of the things I really liked about it, about her character, was the relationship with Melissa McCarthy's character.
Yeah.
And how it became sort of like at the end, they, as she's being like sent to jail or whatever, Melissa McCarthy says something to her, and they give each other that look like, I respect you.
I respect you, but fuck you.
Yeah, I respect you, but fuck you. It's like, you're a woman doing your best in the world that we're given.
Yeah.
They were both trying to, in a way, like take their ranks in a world of men, right? Like how many times was Melissa McCarthy's character put down for being like, you're not sending her in as like on the field, and and so on and so forth. And same with Rose Byrne's character when, what is it? when like the guy she's doing the evil guy she's doing the deal with, and she was like,
Bobby Cannavale's he always plays a villain and stuff, but yes, like that guy.
Yeah, whatever he said, he criticized her about how she was doing the deal. And she was like, fuck you. You would have never said that to my dad.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so just that, like, they were both trying to like, earn their respect in their own field. So I thought it was really fun that like at the end, there was almost like a camaraderie and understanding as well as a fuck you.
Yeah. I would say like the overall plot of what's happening in the movie is not as important as just the relationships with these characters and the nonstop jokes. Cause at the end of the movie, I'm like, well, what did they go for again? There's diamonds. There's a nuke for whatever reason. Why does Bobby Cannavale's character in this? Whatever. Like, I guess you need, because I was like, isn't Rose Byrne the bad guy? Whatever. I guess they're both bad guys. It's one of those things. And then there's like, wait, Jude Law's being the bad guy, but he's not the bad guy. What's happening? I mean,
yeah. There were a couple points in the movie, like watching it again, where I was like, right. She's selling something to somebody, but then doesn't that other person know? I don't know the plot.
Yeah, because I that's when I realized too. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't think.
I'm sure it makes sense on paper, but it's like that's not what stands out to you. It's just the plot is like the beats of a herald. It's just the vehicle to give you the comedy.
Exactly. Because like you have people like Miranda Hart, who plays Nancy in the movie, who does like really good, very good comedic timing on her part as well.
Yeah. I actually knew that actress from before. I was so excited when I saw, because she was in so there was a time when I did have a streaming service before my concussion. Yeah, YouTube. No, I had a Netflix, and
I think they just call it Netflix, not a Netflix.
Okay. but like I had it, and then I had it where I could watch Netflix from other countries or something. And so I watched like Netflix UK, and she had a show called Miranda, where she was the lead in it, and it was so funny. And so when I saw her in this, it just killed me. Like, she has great comedic timing when she's trying to cheer Melissa McCarthy's character up with like the napkin, be like, I do this for my nephew all the time. And she's making faces as she drops the napkin. Like, anyways, every character just had a really good they had their own deal, and it was all very well like put together.
The Allison Janney's character, I think it's pronounced Janney, maybe Janney. She is the boss of, like, she's the head CIA, whatever. She's the head of the CIA, and she bosses Melissa McCarthy around, giving her ridiculous aliases and stuff like that. Like, I've never really, like, she's in a lot of stuff. She's kind of one of those actors that you just recognize. She's like, oh, she's in this. And then this one, like, I felt like she stood out more because she is such a good, I don't know, she's just a really mean boss. Kind of. But she's not mean. She's kind of like a hard ass, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of good jokes come out of it.
I know, with a poker face too, right? Like, because her whole joke is that her character has no sense of humor. So like everything she just said is just sort of like deadpan, and she believes it. I saw her in another movie that this friend lent me with Melissa McCarthy called Tammy. I think it's called Tammy.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, where she plays her mom. And she's a very different character in that movie. So seeing her play these two characters that were very, very different, but yet still like delivered great comedy, I was like, wow, this person's really talented.
Yeah, she is very, very good. Is there any other things that you want to highlight about this movie?
So this is dumb. But when we were watching it again yesterday, there's that scene where they, was it Statham, his backpack gets switch out and there's a bomb in it. Yeah. And so Melissa McCarthy's character is trying to warn him. And then he goes into that, like
crowd, or like it's
a crowd.
concert.
There we go. Yeah. The weird, like, is it German? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know.
It's such a weird spectacle happening on stage. Just to tie this back to dogs, they panned the camera, and I like hit Philippe, and I was like, "There's a dog! It's a boxer!" There was a boxer in the scene, which is, my
I did
dog
not
type
even
of choice.
notice that. That's hilarious.
You wouldn't. It's in the background, and the fact that I could pick that out,
That's amazing.
was just so ridiculous. But all that to say, I think like watching it again, I just caught more of the lines than I did before, because some of them go by so fast.
Oh my God. It's such feels like a big quotable movie. Like back, if you just watch it over and over again, you can really pick up on just again, absurd lines. The thing is, like with this movie, like a lot of movies, we want to like recap a lot of the things that happen, but in this movie, it's just jokes after joke. So if you haven't seen the movie, it doesn't make sense. But I recommend people watch it because the jokes are just so good.
Yeah. And again, like, it's what's nice about it is it doesn't feel like you're watching stand-up. It doesn't feel like you're watching like jokes that were put on paper that were then like people trying to learn how to say them. It was because it's, like Paul Feig is like creating them on the spot. Yes. And it's all coming from like the character relationships. It's just like seamless.
The comedy really comes and it is born from improv and like someone who understands those beats of improv and stuff like that, which is like, I think that's why it works for us. And I think that's why it would resonate for a lot of people as well,
Yeah.
Just two more things before we wrap things up is one, I really like the scene of Melissa McCarthy accidentally killing someone who she kind of like stabs and he falls off a building and then he dies violently and she's like pukes on him by accident and then the knife she was using falls onto this guy's chest. Yeah. It's just like it's just a good like heightening of like how he dies,
Yeah. So much heightening happening in this movie. Like where you think like it can't be heightened more than that, then it's like they push it one more time.
Exactly. And to tie it back to rappers, we get 50 Cent in the movie.
Yes. So randomly. And that's where he has a pretty good line too, where at the end when he's like signing autographs, he's like, "Hey, did you see that I took down terrorists? You don't see Kanye doing that."
Yeah. It's like that's really good. And I remember when he first says a few lines, when they're on the plane at the final like scene and stuff like that. And he's like saying a line, but he's smiling while he's saying it. I could tell it's just like, oh yeah, he can't hold it together for this scene. He's not an actor, so why would he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And imagining how many takes, like it just seemed like it was a riot. I know in the extras and the outtakes, they were also talking about how apparently Paul Feig like laughs throughout the entire like filming of it. So they'll be like, "You're ruining the take," because he's always giggling or like breaking out laughing himself.
Oh my God. That reminds me, and this is the last story, we can wrap things up here, is that reminds me of when I first did videography and I was like assistant to just assistant. We were supposed to run around. There's an event going on and we had to interview people for the X in Ottawa, that thing when it used to be a thing. And basically whenever we did interviews, I was laughing throughout the entire interviews when it was filming. So when the editor had to actually edit the thing, he's like, "I can't use any of this."
Oh no.
Because Tuong, you were laughing throughout the entire thing. I guess we'll pay you because you were there, but we can't use this. And I'm like,
gosh.
Harsh lesson.
What was so funny?
I don't remember. I think it was just like me trying to like interview or not. I wasn't the interviewer. I was trying to like make people feel comfortable on camera. Yeah. So I was laughing awkwardly to make them feel comfortable. But by doing so, all you hear is my laughing while they're answering questions. So it's like, fuck. So yeah, that's a harsh lesson to learn. Don't do that.
So now do you bring like some folded up socks and bite on them the entire interview?
Well, it's just awkward. It's just like, at least on Talking Tongue, I get to laugh like a normal person would in a regular conversation. But if you're interviewing someone in that setting, you ask them a question and then you just bite your lip and you're like, just smiling. I'm just nodding and smiling right now, you know?
Yeah.
Spy, everyone, a 2015 movie. Fantastic movie. Krystal, do you want to rate this movie for the people at home?
What's the scale?
Whatever you want it to be.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Jason Statham scale. I'm going to give it like 20 Stathams out of 10.
Wow. Huge rating over here. I'm going to give it Jude Law over him giving you an adjustable toggle cupcake necklace, which will only make sense if you watch the movie.
Yep. So go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. It's a very fun time. I'm really happy I watched it. Krystal, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, Tuong. Thank you for setting this up. Because when is the last time I saw you? It was over a year ago.
4 million microseconds. Really.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Truly. Yeah. It's a great way to catch up. And in fact, usually these episodes are much shorter. And I'm sorry for keeping you so long, but you're such a fun person to talk to, and we're having so much fun. How do we end the show? Well, we must, Krystal. Before we let you go, of course, can you plug something for the people at home? What's going on in the world?
Okay, I've got a couple of things. You talked about different blogs and stories that I have about my life living with persistent concussion symptoms. So I've got my personal stuff, my personal storytelling, which is This Hat is a Helmet. So you can find that on Instagram. And then there is my work, which is, I said at the beginning I was a dietitian. And so, I combine dietitian and improv. And then I also combine that with brain injury. So I do brain injury nutrition. And I have a TBI nutrition masterclass where, it's super cool. And it's what's extra cool is that because it's online, which was actually set up before the pandemic. I can reach people anywhere. So I have people in Canada, in the US, in Europe. And that is where we learn how to nutrition, dealing with all of the stuff that comes with the brain injury. And we learn to do it in a fun way. Because, there's a lot of nutrition advice out there that is not fun. That is the opposite of fun.
Right.
That is not helpful. Or anyway, so that you can find my website, which is entirely recorded in audio for low screen time, because I know what it's like, is kjmnutrition.com. So that's where you can find answering all the nutrition questions about the brain and food.
I love it. Thank you, Krystal. I just quick point. I just love how you're like, we set up the online thing before it was a pandemic, before it was cool.
Yeah. I feel like I have to, because it's like, it's so good that, I had it set up before. Yeah.
That's so great. No, please check it out. Krystal is an amazing person and very smart, as we discussed. So smart. She can draw on an amino acid probably a couple years ago.
Several years ago.
Years ago. For myself, you can find the rest of the shows in the Pod Cavern at www.podcavern.com. Check it out. We have merch now. If you go to podcavern.com, click on the merch store link, I guess you would call it. That's what most people call it. And if you buy something, just a little bit of a kickback comes to the Pod Cavern. So isn't that nice? You can rep the Pod Cavern on your body and also give us $1. How great is that? That's it for me this week. We'll see you on another episode of Talking Tongue. Before we go, Krystal is going to end on her world famous catchphrase.
I'm small but mighty.
That's it. Bye, everyone.